So, shall I introduce you, Borinquen Gallo? And it's a great pleasure for me to meet you.
It's my pleasure. I'm honored.
One of the things that really fascinates me is just watching these, because there's so many forms of literally manufacture, talking of your time. I don't know how you go through them all and manage to make them all become part of one whole.
Well, I think it has to do with this relationship between parts and a whole, which you brilliantly pointed to. It's all one color, yet when you focus, everything has its own identity and its diversity. For me, it becomes the challenge of, okay, how to reinvent the same material, the kneading, the braiding, the twisting, the ruffling, the pulling, the threading, the different ways that I've figured out how to transform it. It's been the guiding principle of the process.
Do you steal or buy the material that you use?
The original roll of yellow was given to me by a friend who was cleaning up his studio, accidentally had a roll of yellow tape and said to me, I know you'll know what to do with this, and just brought it over. He sat in my studio for about like a year and a half, until one day I was strolling through Chelsea and I saw a piece of debris netting, this material right here, which just sort of, the two things in my mind looked like, they had to marry each other, the tape, the strip, inside the holes. And that's how I started weaving. Yes.
Is it?
Yes,
So
pretty
it's
instinctively. Yes, since then it created a trampoline or sort of a trigger for this obsessive and repetitive weaving that is now taking different configurations, but it's been pretty consistent in using the debris netting as the structural backdrop by which I operate. Before then, I was manipulating plastic in itself by other ways. There's a black piece here where I'm just braiding it, ruffling it, twisting it, finding other ways to connect it. But ultimately, my intent is always that of taking materials that are discarded or despised in some way. I like the word despised because we all despise garbage bags. And then just extrapolate a beauty or just kind of transform it as extremely and radically as I can to find an element of surprise in it.
And before you used these materials, what had your history been?
My history before this, I was basically casting in rubber and silicones, so sort of relatives of plastic in a funny kind of way. And I was thinking a lot about the body and organs, interior organs mostly, and I was thinking a lot about the commodification of the body and emotions in this culture, and how today, if you need a heart, you can buy one. If you need to insure your legs, you can insure your legs or your butt, or you can rent a uterus, and all of that kind of led to this reflection on, how we are sort of in this consumer-driven society that also took possession of our body somehow. And so I was casting organs in rubber and packaging them as if you could purchase them at IKEA or the Container Store, enclosing them in this like shoe pocket vinyl structure that I would again hand sew together.
Who do you feel were your antecedents? I mean, who have you looked up to as artists?
A lot of the people I feel I'm in deep dialogue with are artists who are also very guided by process and physical process. I think I'm in deep dialogue with people like Chakaya Booker, with Ella Natsui for sure, and this idea of just this sort of tension between the found object / found material and just kind of transformational element of the materiality. So I feel like even with the tendency that I have to pick a bag and then make a monochromatic piece, I also am in conversation with Louis Nevelson, in a sense, has been always a big inspiration for me. And then Christo for my interest in architecture and the fact that this debris netting at the end really comes from architectural scaffoldings and tends to blur this line between indoors and outdoors.
Yeah.
So for me also, Christo has been a huge influence in terms of space and architecture and intervening onto space and architecture.
And you teach at Pratt?
I do. I teach at Pratt since 2011 in the Art and Design Education Department. That is sort of a department that focuses on education, mainly training people who want to become art educators, either in a museum setting or in a school setting or in a university setting. And recently also focusing a little bit on the overlap between education and social practice or socially engaged art. Definitely there is a search for beauty in a lot of my work. And I think it's a reflection on my history. Autobiographically, I grew up in Rome. And then when I was 13, my parents moved to the South Bronx as missionaries when the Bronx were completely derelict.
Yes.
And so I went from this sort of childhood of architectural grandiosity, you know, basilicas and Bernini sculptures everywhere. And then I went to the urban wasteland, you know, that the Bronx was at the time in the area where we moved. I was also displaced at a very early age, which in terms of an identity building process, it's always a challenge. But I felt like making art and transforming things and making them beautiful was a way for me to feel at home.
Yes.
So it became kind of a natural way of giving me some control over my immediate environment and sort of redeeming the things that I wanted to correct or fix. So it's a deeper process that I realized.